How's everybody doing? Welcome back to another episode of Pillow Talk Movie Reviews here on the Emotions Eye Films channel. I am Joshua Charparent Woodard, the founder of Emotions Eye Films and writer director, more so director. But today I'm talking about the Batman. And let me just say, I wasn't sure if I was going to like this movie or not. The trailers had me pumped because it was that, dark, kind of realistic take, but also felt like he made a world that felt like it didn't exist. So even though it was grounded in reality, it felt like you would still be in another world. And to me, if you're going to do a comic book movie like the Batman, I think that's the best way to do it. So I was excited for that, but I come away loving this movie. Matt Reeves has created a pretty awesome world. He did take, I think, a lot of inspirations from a lot of other movies. People might find this surprising, but I have not watched Seven all the way through. And I know a lot of people are saying there's a lot of similarities to that, so I'm probably going to have to go back and watch it all the way through. Never seen the Zodiac Killer, but probably have to watch it too. But these are my types of movies. They've been on my list to watch. I just hadn't got around to it. But I love this movie. There is some moments in the film. Now I've only seen it once. I'm gonna go again tomorrow or Wednesday. But you kind of have to have that comic book logic. And this is not a spoiler free. This is gonna have spoilers in it. Uh, I decided not to do spoiler frees anymore. It's just hard to talk about the movie. Um, like I've only seen it once, but when his Batmobile shows up for the first time, it was kind of like, how did he get it there without everybody knowing? And I'd have to watch again. Maybe he knew that's where they was going to be doing some stuff, and he already had it already there. But because that Batmobile is badass and it is loud. Um, but anyway, stuff like that I feel like, how did he get it there? Because it was kind of the same way in BVS. You know, his Batmobile was pretty loud, but he also had it sitting close by. So it's like, how did he get it there without them knowing? But, stuff like that. It's a movie, especially a comic book movie. Um, I don't let stuff like that bother me too much unless it's just like way out of left field. But though, even the way the Batmobile was presented there kind of reminded me of the BVS when he turned his lights on and came out. But I do like this version better. And it fits with the world completely that he's created. And I cannot wait for the HBO Max series, which I think is a really cool way to do it if they do it this way, because supposedly the rumor is he's going to continue to make the Gotham City that's based off of Gordon. And I guess what he has to go through. And then you have the Penguin with him rising as the kingpin of crime or whatever. And if they do the Arkham series that they're talking about, then you could also use that as a way to introduce these characters. And even if they use the Joker, they could go back and explain how he got there and him and Batman's history. And I think that's a really smart way to do it now that you have a streaming platform like HBO Max, because you can make movies and then you can fill in these deep um, side plots of villains and other characters that you want to flesh out. And you can do that on the HBO Max series, and then you can, you know, have it cross over into the movies and you kind of pick up where you left off. So I think that's a smart way to do it. So It went really well for Peacemaker because they kind of continue where it left off, and I don't know what they're gonna go, how they're gonna do it further, but so I'm okay with that. I think that's cool. Um, I guess let's start with what I didn't like. Um, Robert Pattinson, I think, is a good Batman, and he's also a good Bruce Wayne. But there wasn't like a lot of other people are saying. There's not a lot of distinction between the two, like there usually is. So, would it be easier for somebody to know he was Batman? I don't know, because I've always had, like in real life, if anybody was halfway smart, they would eventually put the two together. Bruce Wayne's not around, and when he's not around, Batman shows up. Who could afford all this technology? Well, somebody had a lot of money. Who would want to beat people to a pulp? And well, somebody that obviously has, a chip on his shoulder. I just think it'd be easy. So I always kind of throw that out. It's one of those comic book things. But I liked his version. I mean, he was, still depressed and it was dark, and I love their idea with the whole "I'm vengeance" thing. I think it was Ben Shapiro or however you say his name. I watched his review, or Tyrone Magnus. I watched Tyrone Magnus watch his review, but he was talking about how he felt like he hated the film and he felt like it was they hated Batman, and that the message was is that you can't. Batman is wrong to fight crime. I don't think that's what they were saying at all. And I feel like if that's how you feel, it's your right to feel however you want. But I feel like you're missing the big picture. To me, when I watched it and that vengeance thing came up with the one of the henchmen of the Riddler, and he said, you know, who are you? And he looks at Batman and he says, I am vengeance. And you knew in that moment, because it's like something I've always said, you can be angry and have so much hate that even though you may have the right motive, it actually can be taken wrongly, you misused, and not have the effect that you was hoping. Yes, him being brutal as he was, it caused a lot of the criminals to go in fear. But the crazy ones, like the Riddler, use it as motivation that I can do the same thing and do it my way. So at the end of the movie, you have people who in the city also feared him because they didn't know if they could trust him. And then at the end of the movie, you had him realizing that he needs to be more than that, not just be so angry and so vicious in his, revenge and stuff. He needed to take it back some. You could still be a certain way, but don't go out of your way, to just be, I want to beat you to a pulp because I'm angry and hurt and, want to put fear. So I thought that was a cool way to do it because it's also part of Batman too, and all his comic books and movies and stories. He battles between the line of what to cross and what not to. And I thought this was a good way to introduce this, even though it's not his origin story. It's him in his early years. So he's still trying to learn how to handle everything. And I thought that was a really cool aspect that they went with. And Ben also had made the comment something about, I guess, it being having woke messages in it. Or maybe Tyrone said that. I can't remember. Um, there were some, I guess, woke messages in it because I know Catwoman had said something about the rich, white, privileged. Um, and I'm not going to get into that kind of stuff too much because I have my own thoughts on it and I don't like politics. But I've always felt like when people say white privilege, they're looking at it wrong. It's not really to me about race. It's about, I do think there is some distinction between the rich and the poor, and people who have money probably do get away with more stuff. But I don't think it's a race thing as much as people like to say. I think everybody just likes to make things a racial thing. I don't fully understand that. Sometimes it is, but I think most of the time it's not. So enough of that. But I didn't feel like there was anything like in your face type stuff. And as far as Matt Reeves and him hating Batman, like Shapiro was saying, I don't think that either. He just used it, and it's just a very poetic way. This whole movie to me was just poetic with the way they told the story, and I love it when you have a deeper meaning and meaningful message in there. Um, and I don't think it was a message that they just sought out to make per se, but it's just a message that came across. Because when I write, what I notice is I don't go in trying to have a certain message, but when I write something, I go back and read it for the first time, I realize there is one in there. Everybody has something that they dealt with that they can relate to, and that's why they react and deal with certain situations the way that they do. So there's always a message in there somewhere. But I just like this movie. I think it's a great Batman movie. Yeah, there's some little moments in there that you guys kind of like, but how? But it's fine. One of the things that I do like is this way this movie starts. I love voiceover dialogue scenes. It's not really a monologue, but I love movies that do that. I think it's a very unique way to tell stories, and it's kind of a callback to the old movies that I grew up with, especially ones based off of books. They like to have a narrator or whatever. But if you use it correctly, it's a good way to get the audience invested in what you're doing, and you can get them to understand what kind of movie they're about to see. And the way this movie opened up, I thought was brilliant. Um, there's some similarities in the way that I'm developing my directing style and the way I like to tell stories. There's some similarities with Matt Reeves, but I just love like a lot of long, stagnant shots, slow push ins, let the audience take things in. And I know that's one of the things that some people didn't like about this movie from some of the reviews. They said the shots lingered but he did it that way on purpose. It's a movie about this depressed, um, emo-ish Batman, and not just that, but the whole Gotham City is that same way. He really did a good job of showing how Gotham was and why they needed a Batman and why Batman fits perfectly into this world. Like that's what you get in that kind of story. So I don't quite understand I guess the dislike on that style because that's part of it. You know, in this type of story, you don't have to like it, but it doesn't mean it's a bad movie. Um, and one thing about Gotham City I do want to point out is he took a lot of stuff from different movies. I also feel like me being a fan of the Gotham show that was out on Fox, I felt like they took some inspiration from that show too. Because even though the show ran into some some writing problems in like the late or middle of the third season and fourth season and really the fifth season too, there was a lot of stuff I did like about that. One of them was how they created this Gotham City that felt real, but also felt elseworldly because it's supposed to be set like kind of in the late '80s, early '90s, but they had cell phones that they probably shouldn't have. Like it felt its own thing, and it was a more. I felt more gritty, darker show in the way that they did certain things. And there were some things that happened on that show. I don't know how they was allowed to put it on the show, but so I feel like they kind of went with that and just upped it, a bunch, made it more adult, and put more money into it. So I did like that aspect of it, but they took inspirations from a lot of stuff. But anyway, the opening scene again, like I said, is just so awesome introduction. And I love what he was saying about how he uses the shadows to put fear in them. And I think that was in a kind of graphic novel at one point. Because I know there was a lot from the Zero Year comics that they kind of got some inspiration from. But that was just awesome. Because that's part of what, Batman wanted to do. He can't be everywhere. So how do you do that? Where you use fear to try to control some of the crime in Gotham. So that was awesome. Um, and like I said, he asked the question to begin. He doesn't know if what he's doing is really working or not. And then, in a very beautiful way, at the end of it, he realizes it does work in a way, but it also, because he's gone too far, it's kind of hurt in the same way. Like, and people who miss that, I think, are missing the big picture. It's the same way with the whole everything's a race thing. I think they're missing the big picture. It's not, everything isn't a race thing. There's good people, there's bad people. Sometimes that's just a bad person. Doesn't mean that it's actual racism. But again, I'm not I'm not going in all that. Catwoman, the one thing that I could say that I didn't like, or not that I didn't like, but you could feel it. It is a long movie. Like around when Catwoman was doing her thing, her little side plot, that probably could have been not in the movie, and it would have made it probably 30 minutes shorter. But I get why they did it. Um, so I mean, it could have been 30 minutes shorter, I guess. Penguin, Colin Farrell was awesome. Just everything about this movie, he just did a good job of bringing this world to life. Like the way the Penguin acted. Again, I also feel like they took aspects of that from Gotham too, because I can't remember the actor's name, but they played Penguin in the Gotham series. It was really good, and it was cool to see his rise and stuff. And so again, I think they took some aspects from that, and I don't remember seeing Maroni, but um, you know, Falcone was in there, or Falcone, however you say it. And I heard some people say they didn't like the guy's acting, and they felt like he wasn't someone that you would fear. But I say otherwise, because anybody that is that cool, that calm, even though they have people killed and kill people, that's somebody to fear. Um, so I don't agree with that. I thought that was good. The Riddler was very, very unsettling, especially when he's talking to Batman and you think he knows that he's Bruce Wayne, but it kind of find out he's not. He doesn't know, and when he realizes his plan's not working because Batman was supposed to be in the cell with him, they was going to watch what happens to Gotham. Just that whole point of him losing it to the point where he's crying a little bit. I've always said if you made somebody mad enough that they start to cry too, better watch out. Because that's a whole nother level, and that's a whole nother mental thing going on there. And when someone's hurt, I mean, truly hurt about something, that's a dangerous person. So, um, and then I heard some people say they feel like the Joker, nod or scene towards the end of the movie felt out of place. I didn't feel like it was out of place, but I also feel like it was something that took from Gotham too, because Gotham had Jerome in the cell talking to Penguin when they thought that Jerome was dead, and they realized he's still alive. So again, there's some similarities in a lot of places. I feel like they took everything that was good about Gotham and just upped it, in my opinion, which is a good thing because I love that show. But I liked it. the guy that's playing it, Coogie or however you say his last name. I haven't really seen a lot of stuff with him in it, but some of the clips and stuff that I've seen and what I saw him do there real quick, I thought it was creepy, and I would love to see this version of the Joker. I think he would be more like a killer clown type rather than what you normally used to, which again would make it very unsettling, disturbing, and that's what I like. Like if I ever do zombie films or any type of horror film and I was to write it or have some hand in writing it, one of the feels that I would want for people to get from it is disturbing. I feel like disturbing is better than straight scary images or jump scares. Something disturbing, I think, sticks with you a lot longer, and that's kind of how the Riddler was, and I think that's how they would have the Joker. So I'm hoping that they do. I hope it's not in the second movie. I hope they wait and bring him maybe in the third, especially since Matt Reeves has come out and said they already have a history, and we're going to see that deleted scene probably posted on YouTube, hopefully in the next coming weeks, because I really want to watch it. Um, so I hope maybe the third film they'll bring the Joker and he has a big plan, and it just off the wall bonkers. Um, and hopefully we see him in the Arkham series because that'll be cool, and maybe they'll use that to fill in some of the backstory. There was also some elements from the Arkham games in this too. Like I don't know if it was any of the comic books or not, but you know how they said the Wayne and Arkham's were kind of tied together. I don't know if that was in the comics or not. I don't read every Batman comic, and I'm usually just in the graphic novels anyway. But I thought that was cool. I remember it being in the game. Um, I've heard rumors that he wants to do a Mr. Freeze, and I think that could be kind of cool. I'd really like to see the Court of Owls because that's just fascinating to me. Gotham kind of did that, and I thought what they did and what they was able to do with it was kind of cool. Um, so it'd be interesting to see where they go. But I think it's a really good Batman movie. I don't necessarily like to compare it because even The Dark Knight is still a different movie. And it's an excellent movie. It's a masterpiece of a film. I think this is. I'd have to watch it again, but I think I'm going to say it is a masterpiece too because I just like I just like how they did this Batman film. It's about a guy who has turned himself into vengeance, trying to control the criminals by fear and seeing how brutal he is and how angry he is and how, disconnected he is, only to realize if you go too far, it can have the opposite effect. It's kind of one of the reasons why I like Hostile so much. You can have hate so much that it turns you into the exact same thing, I guess, in a way. So I like that aspect of it and that angle. And, I've heard some people say complaining that he didn't seem to be the smartest person in the room. Well, it's just as young, getting started, He had Alfred helping him, and him and Gordon kind of had some things confused. But I like that though, because I mean, he's at his reckless stage, is how I would see it. From how he's learning how you can't just be that brutal and expect um, to be looked as differently. You're not quite Hope, and he doesn't necessarily need to be Hope, in a sense, because Batman is about being fearful, but he realized, he had to be more, which they kind of hinted on some of that too in Zack Snyder's when it comes to Superman and how the Batman realized maybe he shouldn't kill. And so I think it was kind of the same thing they was trying to do with this ending, which I thought was, again, very beautiful thing. And so I'm really curious to see how he progresses from this reckless stage. It's kind of like James Bond, because the way I took James Bond in Casino Royale, it was that early stage of his where he was a little reckless. Like he didn't always do things perfection, uh, in a perfectionist way like he would in some of those other James Bond movies where he's been James Bond for a while. He was reckless. He's made it work, but it was messy, and it's kind of the same way, with this Batman, and I love that because I don't have to have the same Batmans I've seen before. I like to see a character progress. And I've liked those stories in the comics where you've seen Batman in his early years and how he made mistakes and he learned from it and he progressed, because it's also a way of life and we can connect with that a little bit more too. So I don't think that this is a movie that says Batman shouldn't, fight crime. That's what Chappelle kind of stated, and the way he made it sound in his review is that Batman's not going to fight crime no more. He's just going to be a firefighter. And it's like, that's not what they're saying. He's just trying to say sometimes what you do is right, but if you cross the line, it's not right. And that's what Batman's always been. If I cross a certain line, I'm not gonna be any different. And I don't know if I'd ever come back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Anyway, I probably went on way longer than I wanted to, but at the end of the day, I love this movie. It was very mesmerizing. It's the way I like to watch movies. It's how I would like to film my movies. It's how I've kind of done some of my movies. I love long takes. I love pushing in. I love having a good sound design, um, which will improve with more money. But I love, because when you put everything together, you film it one way and it looks boring. But if you put everything together, sound design, pushing the camera at the right moments as the sound does a certain thing or the score does a certain thing, if you do it correctly, you end up mesmerizing your audience. And that's what I love about making movies. That's what I want my movies to do. Got a long way to go, but that's my goal. But anyway, did you like the Batman? Did you not like the Batman? I think it was great. I'm pretty sure I'm going to say it's a masterpiece, but I want to watch it one more time before I actually say that. Um, it's not a movie for everybody, but it was definitely my kind of movie. So thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll have a backdrop and stuff done so that we can actually start doing videos and not just the audio with a little slideshow. And we're going to start doing me and my writer and kind of my business partner. We're going to start doing reactions or reviews to short films, because short films is where a lot of people get started. And I think it's good to go and watch them because I watch a lot of them. But now we're going to try to react to some and review some. And who knows? There might be another Matt Reeves out there. You just hadn't seen his stuff yet. So anyway, until next time.